All right, Prospects Live viewers, welcome back to the second installment of our 2020 MLB player profiles. Today, we're going to be breaking down Clayton Beeter, right-handed pitcher of Texas Tech. Of course, with me, I have my colleague, courtesy of perfectgame.org. That is Brian Sikowski, the National Scouting Director for Perfect Game. Brian, let's talk a little Clayton Beeter. We'll pull up the video here so you can discuss some of what you've seen with Beeter. He's a guy that, another arm that has sort of seen his stock increase over the last few months. Someone that's on the tip of a lot of tongues and has moved up a lot of draft boards. So talk to us about what you've seen with Beeter.
Yeah, he's maybe the biggest riser of the spring in reality, just in terms of where he was talked about prior to the season starting versus where he might go in the draft now. It's a guy you may be talking about the top 20s at some point with. But a guy who did not do a lot at Tech prior to this year. He'd been hurt. I think he'd missed a whole year as a result of being injured. Redshirt sophomore, technically, high school class of 2017. But it's bat missing stuff, man. That's really what it is. It's bat missing traits, and he throws a lot of strikes. It's 92, 97 with the fastball. He's got that near vertical arm slot. There's some spin rate traits and characteristics there. He throws a lot of strikes with it. It's a really hard, powerful downer curveball that misses a ton of bats in the low mid 80s. That spin metric stuff really checks out as well. It's two pitches. There's some violence to the delivery. There's some reliever tendencies there. There's some things to nitpick. But at this point, and especially for us when we were building our board, guys who can miss bats like that, projected miss bats like that, we'll be higher on than most. Those are guys we're comfortable being high on.
Yeah, and they're guys that can fit into a variety of roles, too, and be successful, whether it is as a starter, which is what I think we always want with these exciting college arms. But certainly if he's a guy that slots into a relief role, he has the stuff for it to play in that role, no?
Absolutely. And it may be a guy who the stuff could play up in the bullpen. And when we're talking about him on our board in the middle, late first round, obviously you'd prefer that to be a starter. Like, who wouldn't? But if it happens to where he's got to be a reliever, that could be a mid-upper 90s guy with an absolute hammer who could potentially fill a closer role.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see here in the delivery, there's quite a bit of athleticism. He's a fun arm to watch, absolutely a guy that's moved up boards. Where do you have him at this point, on your big board?
He's number 22 right now. We've heard that some teams as high up as the top 12, 13, 14 are talking about him. I don't think that that's necessarily going to end up being a thing, but it's worth mentioning. Traditional scouting teams like him because of the way he performs, and the metric-driven teams like him because the spin stuff it all checks out, and obviously he's throwing a ton of strikes too, which helps. So either way, I think he's a guy who's rising. I don't think he's going to get out of the top 40 picks. Granted, we're higher there at 22, but just really value the bat miss for sure.
Yeah, and I think just the nature of this draft and some of the uncertainty, the one thing I think that we're all kind of certain on is a lot of these college arms and folks that are going to end up signing, getting pushed up boards a little bit and landed in the first round. Beeter's a really interesting name. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back with a really, really interesting bat next. That's Austin Hendrick.